Thank you for joining Brad Nickason and myself, Nancy Furness, for this episode of We've Got Issues. We've Got Issues is a nonpartisan, citizens-based forum, and we explore issues and topics of interest to Tri-Cities residents. We also serve as a way to help elected representatives stay connected with their constituents. So today we're filming on site at the Coquitlam City Council chambers, and I'd like to acknowledge that we are on the traditional and unceded territory of Coquitlam First Nations. I'd also like to extend our gratitude to Tri-Cities Community Television for filming our interviews. So this afternoon, we are joined by City Councillor Trish Mandewo, and we're going to get to know Trish a little bit better, and we look forward to talking to you. So thank you for joining us this afternoon, Trish.
Thank you so much.
I think we'll just start right off by getting to know you a little bit better. If you can tell us maybe a little bit about your background and how you came to run for City Council, like what inspired you to run for City Council?
For sure. So I am a community builder. I consider myself a community builder. I consider myself a connector as well as an entrepreneur. So I am all those things. So from the time I moved to Coquitlam in 2009. From the day that I set foot here, I was immersed in the community. I was volunteering. I was helping those that needed help. I was in the business platform. Very, very involved from the get-go. And I always believe that if we want to see change happening in the world, it happens from the policy level. So from when I was young, I set a goal for myself to say one day I will be at the policy making table so that I can see those changes that I want to see in the world. So rewind to 2 years ago in 2018, when I found out that 2 city councillors were retiring, and my daughter was in high school at that time, I saw that is the right opportunity for me to put my hand up and to step forward and run for City Council. So I did in 2018, and here we are today.
It sounds like you had put a lot of thought into this. So you had sort of long-term goals and that you met your goals. And it's great to see you here and, actively involved, continuing to be actively involved in the community. So I was wondering, can you maybe tell us a little bit about some of your duties as City Councillor and what kind of committees you're on or what projects you're involved in?
Oh, for sure. So I talked a little bit about all the things that I am involved in. So I tried to continue on that trajectory when I came to City Council to say I am a business person. So I really would like to make sure that the business community knows that, we are paying attention and that there is a voice. I was on the board for Tri-City Chamber of Commerce before I ran. And even today, I engage with them quite often to make sure that, we are listening. Because I think as city councillors, one of our biggest roles is to listen and to know where the gaps are in the community so that we are making sure that the community is heard. And so I try to do that. So the other thing that I did before I came on council was I was a champion for kids. I actually got an award in 2016, I believe, for being a champion for kids through my business and through my personal volunteering. When I came on council, I also continued to do the same. So one of my committees that I was on was the Tri-Cities Early Childhood Committee and the Tri-Cities Middle Childhood. I was supporting on that platform as well. I was on the Multiculturalism Committee, but I don't know if you know, but we at City of Coquitlam, we switch after every 2 years so that we all can be able to support the communities in different ways. So my first 2 years, I was on Multiculturalism Committee as well as the Universal Accessibility Committee, and we just switched. And I'm sure that will be announced in the near future. And also in my first year as City Councillor, I was lucky to be my peers elected me to be on the Union of BC Municipalities, also known as UBCM. I sit at the table, and I just got re-elected a few months ago. So this is my second year now on UBCM. And this year at UBCM, I also am chairing the Indigenous Relations Committee, and I am also on the Economic Development Committee for UBCM. I also ran for the Lower Mainland Local Government Association, also known as LMLGA, and I am on that committee as well. So I try to support, or not only locally, but to make sure that the issues of the people of Coquitlam are also represented through these area associations.
Right, that sounds like a lot of work and a lot of committees, and it must have been a very steep learning curve to take all that on. Can you share with us how your first year and maybe your second year is going, and how you sort of grappled with learning all this new information and how you found your way through the systems? A little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So for me, it wasn't a steep learning curve at all, because I had set the goals of what I wanted to do, and I've always been a governance junkie. So with that, I mean, I came in not learning about the community charter when I got to council. I already was immersed in it before I came on board. I already knew about all the different levels of government and what's involved. So the learning was more about how do we do things in the city of Coquitlam table, right? And that didn't take time at all, because we have a great way of onboarding. Our clerk is amazing. You know, we spent, the two new councillors spent half a day with him, and he kind of showed us all the ropes, which was just amazing, because we came in on the first day without a doubt, very confident, because he had given us all the information that we needed to have.
So it sounds like you were well supported as far as getting that training and jumping in with both feet, so to speak. How do you find working with council, being a new councillor? Are you comfortable bringing forward new ideas, and do you feel that your voice is being heard and respected by council and mayor, and that you're getting sort of your 2 cents worth in?
For sure. I think that question is never about how you feel about others. I truly believe that when I put my name forward to do anything, I should be confident enough to step in and be able to let everybody know I'm here. Right? You don't step up on a role like this and expect to just get there and sit there. I don't think our citizens elect us to do that. When they elected me, they expected me to show up from day one and to be ready to work. So I did just that. And at our table here, everyone is treated the same. I found out from the day that I got on. I never felt like I needed to get someone to tell me to go ahead. It was an open space from the get-go, and I've been myself from day one up until now. And of course, you build more confidence because there are some other things that you might not be sure about. So you always err on the side of being cautious, right? So yes, was I hesitant at the beginning on some things? Yes, I was. If I didn't know what the process was, I might have held back a little bit on some things. But as I learned more and as I got comfortable, off it went.
Sounds like so far you've had a pretty positive experience.
For sure, for sure. For me, the journey has been so different. And that's one of my goals, is actually to tell people that hesitate and that don't see themselves at those tables, to say the table is for everybody. And anyone who is willing to come in and work for their community, that table is open for them to do so. And there's nothing that really blocks them from doing so.
So I would imagine that you would encourage other people to do the same. You think that Coquitlam is open to hear people's voices, and that they should step forward and do that?
For sure, for sure. I think any time an election happens, that's why we've got election cycles, right? I think it's because the community knows if they want to see change, then they want to see change. When the openings came up, I was the first Black person ever elected in Coquitlam. And others could have looked at it and say, they've never been such a change in Coquitlam, so you're wasting your time. Right? But I think the people of Coquitlam know that our ecosystem in our community is changing and that there is space for different voices that can come in so that we can really be a complete community that hears all the voices. And yes, people should step up.
So you're saying to other people of color that they should speak up. You got me all excited about asking a couple of questions. But what I'm really interested first in what you said was that you saw that opportunity. What gave you that strength? Like, this is a personal question. What gave you the strength, or where do you find the strength to be in a situation where it has not been done before, but you chose to do it? Where do you find that strength?
For me, it goes back from when I was young.
Yeah.
Many people don't know that I come from very humble beginnings.
Okay.
So when you're a child and you are houseless and you're smart, you are intelligent, you know you've got so much in you, and you look at the roof and you look at the sky, and that's all you have going for you. You learn to tell yourself, if there's ever going to be any change, I want to be that instrument to instill that change. So for me, that's where the confidence comes from. I, from an early age, always said, I want to be the voice for that little girl who is like that little girl that I was, that I felt like nobody was there for me, but I want to be that voice. And I want to be that person that someone can feel comfortable to say, I'm a resident of Coquitlam, and I want to be part of my city, and I want to make sure that I'm being heard.
Right.
And I know that people see who is sitting there, and their comfort level comes from that. They can look and say, I'm comfortable to come to you. And we want to have that. So that's how I set that goal from an early stage.
From yourself.
Yeah, when I won the top 25 Canadian immigrants in 2017, I remember being interviewed by a newspaper in Toronto, and they said, so what's next? You have won top 25 new immigrants in Canada, so what's next? And I said, politics is next. And at that time, I didn't know that there was going to be anyone retiring and that I was going to be putting my name forward in 2018. But it was already a journey that I was going towards.
So, okay, so for so somebody who hasn't got, like, because you obviously have a certain kind of drive and a certain kind of inner vision, but there are people who don't have that drive and inner vision innate, that it is dormant in themselves, but they have something to offer. What do you say to them?
So that's why, when you make it a mission to help others find themselves and to help others find their voices, that's what I've done even in my personal business world. I'm all about empowerment. I'm all about, like now I do governance training, whether it's for someone who wants to sit on a board or someone who wants to get into politics. The confidence comes when you have the information. When they say information is power, they really mean it. Because when you know that you are empowered and you are equipped with that knowledge, it gives you that confidence to raise your hand and say, I'm here.
You're talking about empowerment and about voices being heard and how all that is so, so very important. As your role as councillor, what are you most proud of, or what do you feel that is your biggest accomplishment, given the short time that you've actually been on council, as far as empowering other people or allowing other people's voices to be heard?
So I truly, truly believe that as human beings, over the years, we have become very responsive. And when we listen to someone, we are listening to respond. And I think politics is not different. So one of my biggest accomplishments is coming in, not with an empty mind, but with an open mind when I came to the table. I came with an open mind, and I came with a collaborative mind. Because I know that it's never going to take my one vote to do anything. It takes all of the people that sit around the table, all 9 of us, in order to get something done. And I think that's the other thing that people get wrong before, when they're running or they're coming to the, running for any level of government. They're like, I am going to do this and I am going to do this. It needs to shift to I am going to work collaboratively with others to accomplish these goals, right? Or in other ways, you're trying to get consensus by making people listen to the end goal that you have and listening to the ideas that you have so they can buy in. And only then can they vote with you so that you can, bring whatever issue it is forward. So I think one of my things that I'm proud of is coming in and knowing that each of us are individuals and each of us have people that we're connected with in the community that want to see something, whatever that something is, but we need each other in order to bring that message forward. And I came in with that, and I think I've been very, very successful in just listening to everybody and coming in and making that decision, knowing that you're making a decision that the people of Coquitlam really will benefit from.
I'm going to ask you a question. I'm just going to dig a little bit deeper into what you said, because I heard you say that we need each other, but one of the issues that you run up against is that people listen to respond as opposed to listen to hear. So what do you do to make sure that, knowing that there are people around you who are just listening to respond, what do you do to make sure that they hear you, like so that your voice is heard? Because in what we do, this is one of the basic premises that we base our little program on, is trying to find a way that all voices are heard, and knowing that we're coming up against people that just are waiting to respond. So what would you suggest to us, and what do you do to make sure that you're heard?
Yes, so one of my favorite authors, Brené Brown,
Yes.
really covers this topic in her book, Dare to Lead. I'm not advertising for Brené Brown at all.
You just
But, but one of the things she talks about is how you can ask the person sitting across from you for 2 minutes. Like to ask to say, I'm not wanting you to respond. I just want you to listen to me for a second. Hear me out, right? And whether it takes a couple times of saying, for us, we've got a button that we press to say, I want to talk again. And I will press again. Perhaps my colleagues didn't hear me correctly. What I am trying to say is, and you restate. And if it means asking a question to make sure that they got you, I do that. And the other thing too is the silence. The silence before you speak has so much power. You can press the button and you can pause. And that pause gets the attention of everybody. And then you restate.
So I did a little bit of research. I looked you up, and you have at the present, I think, if I'm not incorrect, you have a company that teaches people of colors to be leaders, right? And so maybe you can tell us a little bit about that, because I think that's at this time, I think that's fabulous in the lower main, or not in the lower mainland, but I think you
around the world.
Oh, okay. So you reach all around the world, and you're teaching people to come to places like this and be engaged in a community. And I think that's really important, because I know I struggle with this. Even to ask this question right now is a struggle for me, because I'm terrified to say the wrong thing. So maybe you can tell us about that your organization and the things you're doing, and then speak to people to get involved more as well.
Yeah, for sure. So my organization, Synergy on Boards Consulting Group, is an organization that does governance training, and as well we do placement on boards as well as in senior level positions. The reason why it exists is because people are comfortable applying for jobs and they'll get in a position, but because there is a gap between middle management and senior management, as well from that senior management to get onto the paid boards, there is nationwide in Canada less than 4.5% of Indigenous, Black, and visible minorities sit on those powerful positions. As well, the federal government just did a scan across the board and realize that they as well have less than 4.5% of people that are in the appointed positions, such as the deputy minister or assistant deputy minister. They have mostly Caucasian. And when they diversify, they go for women. So for them, diversity is one-dimensional. It's bringing Caucasian women on board. But for me, the mission is to say, no, there's so many dimensions of diversity, right? That can bring that powerful voice and a different angle to the table. And I truly believe, not I truly believe, but research has shown that when you diversify, whether it's ableness, whether it's age, whether it's ethnicity, all these different dimensions of diversity make us stronger and truly build communities. And if you look on the business side, the business case for that is huge. So I come from that place, and instead of pointing fingers at people to say, oh, why don't you have this? I am more about having the people lift their hands up and say, I would like to sit at that table. Because sometimes you find that the Indigenous, Black, and visible minority communities wait to be invited to the circle. But I think sometimes we need to invite ourselves to the party. But in order to get the confidence to be invited to the party, we have to be equipped with the knowledge, and we have to make sure that we know what's there. And sometimes you have to force yourself to get there. Right? And if I had looked from the outside and said, oh my gosh, I look at Coquitlam for how many years for the city council and they've never had a black person, I could have just said, I'm not going to run. But for me, because I believe, and I truly believe from the down to my core, I believe that I've got something to give.
You're going to, sir?
I have something to give.
Yes.
And because of that, I come up and I tell my people of Coquitlam, this is what I'm going to bring, and this is what I have to give. And they saw it, and they elected me. So my goal in life is to equip women and Indigenous, Blacks, visible minorities with that confidence. And I'm not saying not everybody, and I need to correct myself and say, it doesn't mean that every Indigenous, Black, and visible minority doesn't have confidence. No, there are many that have confidence. But for those that are needing that little step up, that's what my organization is there to help. And for those that already have the confidence and the knowledge, we are hoping to make the relationships with the companies so that companies can come to us and say, we have got this opening, who do you have in your network that we can tap into? So we are also providing a database. Right now we have quite a huge database of subject matter experts and executive Indigenous, Black, and visible minorities that are in our network. So that's what my company does.
And so through my experience sitting on a couple of boards, there are times when boards are looking for people to come and join them. So I believe, tell me if I'm wrong, that you're saying they should, that people should step up and have the confidence to ask. And if not on a paid board, come and try some volunteer boards first. There are people looking for them.
Yeah, for sure. So we cater to different sectors of the people that are looking for board positions. A lot of IVBM, which is Indigenous, IBVM, Indigenous, Black, and visible minorities that are already involved in the community sit on non-profit boards. And we are, represented in quite a bit. But it's that step of going to the paid board that is like, oh no, you're okay, we want you here, but not here. And I think women faced the same for the longest time. It was like, yep, no, women can serve on the non-profits.
You can volunteer, but we don't want to pay you. And I think your story is especially powerful because you're here, right? So you're not just talking about it, you're actually doing it and living it. So it provides a really good example and a lot of hope and encouragement, hopefully, for other people to take that leap and start applying for those positions and going out and looking for them and not, as you say, waiting to be invited. Because we're missing out on a lot of talent and a lot of skills and life experiences.
Yeah, I know. I get asked to speak a lot. And when I speak to businesses especially, I share the examples of how companies actually do miss. They will create a product that totally only works for one sector of the community, and they totally miss everybody else because they didn't have that diversity or cognitive diversity at the table when they were making the product. Even IBM learned that a long time ago, and they went and did so much work to make sure that they had all these different voices coming from the different communities, and they are one of the leaders in that space. And you look at companies like Korean Air had big mistakes because of cultural things, where men were the ones that were in lead of everything, and the women were seeing the mistakes, but they couldn't talk because of culture. So we are bringing that to say, look how important it is to make sure that you listen to all the voices.
And that's so. I hope you don't mind going with me on a little journey here. You're talking about a corporate level, but
and government.
And government. But I think that there's something to learn in on a community level as well from the experience. Diversity with respect to community. Maybe you could talk to diversity from that. A little earlier today, we had Councillor Kim of Coquitlam in, and he talked about around the beginning of COVID, the problems with racism. And to me, that's a problem of having a mental space for diversity in your community. Maybe you can speak to the value of diversity in communities.
I have to say, in the last few months, I've gotten to a point where I am drained about talking in things about diversity. As you know, we have had quite a tough 2020. And I got to a point where if someone was asking me to come on an interview to talk about that topic, I was saying no.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. That's okay. I gave you the permission. I said I'm okay to talk about it. Being aware of diversity in our community is really, really critical. And when COVID happened, nobody was paying attention to the disaggregated data. We have always had aggregated data because it told us about a community as a whole, and that we were comfortable with that. But COVID has shed some different light. It's like you do have, communities within communities. And I think as cities, we need to be cognizant of that. If we always say, we are serving our community, what does that mean? Who is in our community? What are their needs? What are they going through? But I think because of the governing structures that we have always said, as city councillors, we are here for 1, 2, 3, 4 roads, sewer, zoning. That's what we have stayed in that lane. But COVID challenged that system and said, we want you to look other ways. And I think that's where we are today, and that's why we are able to have some of these conversations now to say, who are we zoning for? Is there someone that's missing in the system, in the picture? If we're having the public hearing, who is not coming, and why are they not coming? Right? And you've got other cities that have kind of led the way, and they've been asking these questions longer, and they started going to where the people are to consult so that they can get those voices. Because you can imagine, if you've got a single mother that's working 2 jobs, and we have a public hearing, is she ever going to show up for that hearing? No, because she's busy working. She has got to feed her family, right? And if you've got thousands of them that are like that, and we never hear their voices, are we ever going to plan the city in their eyes? Are we ever going to plan a city that they're saying, that's my city? They're not involved. So it's up to us to really look at how we engage the communities, and it's up to us to always ask, whose voice is missing?
Whose voice is missing? Absolutely. We, as we now know, we're running short on time. So I think the question that the last thing that we'd like to ask is, like, what do you still aspire to achieve during during the rest of this particular term on City Council? What are you shooting for?
So I'd say my number one thing is for not only the city of Coquitlam, but all cities to have disaggregated data, to have a means to collecting data, and to be able to look at the data and make it and use it effectively to build our cities. That's the number one thing. The second thing that I really would like is for communities to have an equity, diversity, and inclusion lens to everything. Through my work, I have learned that a lot of organizations do the surface level of EDI. And when you bring in someone to train or someone to talk, you're going, yeah, we have done it. I want us to go deeper than that. And I want us to apply that lens throughout our city. And we talked about the disaggregated data earlier. That data comes into play when you're doing that EDI. How are we looking out for that single mom? How are we looking out for that person that is on a wheelchair? Yes, we do the best we can right now. I'm not saying we're not doing anything. We do the best. But is there room to improve? Yes, there is. How can we improve it? By knowing if they're in our community, where are they? What else do they have to say? Because you find that the people that engage with the city are always the same ones. If you do the public hearing, you hear the same voices that are coming, right? But I want us to create a space where everyone can be able to say, my city is willing to hear from me. I can make that hearing, but I can send an email. So communication is really, really big. And kudos to our City of Coquitlam Communications Department. They are really working hard to get to that. And also, our city as a whole, we are always looking at, even from the council table, we are saying, how can we engage the community more? How can we get to everyone, right? So those aspects, like intertwining all those and really fine-tuning it to make sure that by the time we make the decision, we are so happy because we know that everyone that wanted to be heard was heard. That's my goal.
If there's a possible silver lining to the whole COVID situation, that might be one of them, is exposing some of our weaknesses and making those decisions and the lack of data that we're basing those big decisions on. So
yeah, my favorite quote is, not quote, but saying, is we don't know what we don't know. And sometimes what we don't know scares us, right? So I think COVID is teaching us that it's okay that you don't know. It's okay for you to admit that, yeah, we lack here and we need to improve here. It only makes us better human beings and it makes us a better community.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for coming in and speaking to us and introducing yourself to us, letting us know. My name is Brad Nickason. I'm with my co-host Nancy Furness, and this little program that you've been watching is We've Got Issues. It's a nonpartisan program that's meant to inform us about the process of government and the people in government who are doing our work, our citizen work. So we would like to thank Councillor Trish Mandewo for coming in today. Thank you once again. And we'd like also to thank our partners at Tri-City Community TV for helping us broadcast this little program. Thank you again for being with us. Thanks for watching.